Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bobby and Beardy Show. I'm Bobby.
I'm Beardy.
And we're here to talk about movies, TV shows, and anything else we feel like. Today we're going to be discussing Madam Web, and there will be time codes below. If you want to skip around, get the spoilers free, get the spoilers. It's all up to you. Beardy, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. What have you been up to? Anything fancy? Because last week we learnt that you were Captain Culture. What's Captain Culture been up to?
I've lost all my culture.
No culture.
Big weekend of watching movies and just keeping busy to lean into this podcast more. So I've been catching up.
Perfect.
How about you?
Well, it turns out I'm Captain Culture, if you class wrestling as culture, of course, which...
culture for someone.
Well, somebody will. Me. Yesterday, I saw Rev Pro High Stakes in Crystal Palace, which featured Will Ospreay's final Rev Pro match. 11 years he's been wrestling on and off for Rev Pro because he's gone and signed with one of the big boys, AEW. He had a world title shot against the champion Mike Loku and had a great match. Orange Cassidy from AEW showed up as well to defend his international title in the opening match as like a surprise. And AEW owner Tony Khan was there, who also owns Fulham, as a fun fact for you there. So they watched the main event as well. The show was good, very enjoyable. We had the worst seats known to man. They weren't seats; they were benches, and I got a very, very numb bum. Quite honestly, I would say wrestling wise, quite a lot of the matches followed the same structure and were more or less the same length as well. A lot of the same kind of spots and just it's the indie style. Doing the same kind of you hit me real hard and then I'll hit you real hard and we're like,
yeah.
Oof, oof. Problem is when it happens every match, you're like, I feel like I've kind of seen this before. That said, really enjoying watching smaller wrestling at the moment, like smaller companies, as opposed to just WWE, who I'm a bit
Makes sense.
Bit sick of. Every match probably just needed to be trimmed, apart from Orange Cassidy's, which needed to be probably double the length.
Extended.
Ultimately, because it was a bit quick.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, you've got culture this week, right? At last, it's back to me.
We're
next
sharing
week,
out the culture. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be more wrestling updates from me from next time, I imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Depending when we record, of course.
And what we're covering, hint.
Brilliant. Well, that's all of our culture and updates for this week. So let's just jump straight in this time. No 20-minute pre-ramble this week.
Oh, no.
Let's just jump straight into Madam Web. Let me tell you about Madam Web really quickly. Madam Web is the fourth film in Sony's Spider-Man universe, so it's separate to Marvel's MCU, which means it's in the same universe as Venom 1 and 2 and Morbius, or at least it should be. Because this is not the MCU, this is a Spider-Man universe missing Spider-Man. Kind of. We'll talk about that right at the end. It also means it's bad.
You're too harsh.
Directed by S.J. Campbell in what appears to be her film directorial debut. On the Wikipedia, has only done TV before. So, and the screenplay was by Matt Sam Sazama. Sorry, can't read my own notes. And Burke Sharpless, which I'm pretty sure is a made-up name. Those two wrote Morbius, and then also Claire Parker and S.J. Clarkson are on the screenplay listing as well. Starring Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor. Budget of $80 million, apparently. And as of today, worldwide box office of $51 million, and that's according to Box Office Mojo. Beardy, tell us a little more.
So Madam Web is the origin story of Cassandra Webb, Cassie Webb, how she gets her powers, how she fits into the universe, how eventually she could or will meet Spider-Man and help him. And in this retelling of it, this storyline of it, there are, you've all seen the trailers, there are 3 other spider-powered heroes. I couldn't think of the word for heroes. I personally, we've discussed this a little bit, but I liked it. Like, it wasn't the best film I've ever seen. It's not maybe the best film I've seen this week, but it's origin stories are hard. Origin stories have been hard since the early days of the MCU. Obviously, it is mainly sort of the Sony side of things. With Morbius was, depending who you ask, not fantastically received. Venom, to be fair, Venom got quite good critic scores and audience scores. Venom 2, I wasn't as big a fan. But anyone who tries to do a new origin story after the first phase MCU stuff, it has been difficult. Obviously, Deadpool did it quite well, I guess. Well, I guess I actually really like Deadpool, but yeah, origin stories are hard. To me, it felt like an early 2000s superhero movie again. It felt very sort of Sam Raimi-esque from the original Spider-Man.
Yes, it does feel very early 2000s, and I don't say that as a compliment. I'm going to be honest. You can make a good point about origin stories being really hard. And that's actually one of the reasons why I like Tom Holland's, little Tommy Holland's, Spider-Man movies, is because they do his origin story just, well, they kind of miss it, essentially, because he's like, we don't have time for this, we're doing Civil War, we're going to space, and then in No Way Home, that's kind of has some of the origin story beats with the Aunt May stuff and things. I'm trying to avoid spoilers for a film that's been out for about 2 years, but so that's one of the reasons why I really like the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, because they don't do the mistake they did with the Amazing Spider-Man, which is do the origin story like 2 years after they did the origin story with the
but the thing is, obviously, with the Sony Spider-Verse stuff, there is always the potential for it to be brought into MCU stuff if needed. Obviously, it depends on how well it's received, how much money it's going to make, whether it fits with the storyline. There is that option. I think there are people who are huge fans of Spider-Man who are potentially interested in it. I've been a big fan of Spider-Man since before my time at Sony, even when I was significantly younger, and I would like to see a fully fledged out universe of it, but let's be honest, it's probably not going to happen.
I would have far more faith in Marvel doing the Spider-Man stuff than Sony. I'm going to be completely honest with you, everybody. This is the first of the Sony Spider-Man, not Spider-Man films that I've seen. I skipped Venom 1 and 2 because I didn't think they looked very good. Morbius looked worse and got terrible reviews, and I was like, well, I'm just not gonna bother with this one. Watched this one for this, essentially, to see what was what was. Which leads me to my question to you, McBeardy. Is Madam Web better than any of Venom 1, 2, or Morbius? Because I don't know.
It's difficult because critically reviewed, no. Audience reviewed, no. But I liked it. Like, again, it's not my top rated film ever. But I also liked Morbius. I liked Venom. They aren't top tier, but sometimes you want to watch a superhero movie. You want to watch a film in general that it doesn't always have to be groundbreaking, sort of like your Endgame sort of level of things. It's the Morbius background story I quite liked. I like seeing an anti-villain. Same with Venom. Madame Web. It's a long entry to her story, considering how when she first appears in the Amazing Spider-Man comics in the 80s, it's just well, here she is.
And here she is, everybody, Madame Web.
And honestly, you meet her when she's 60, 70, so this is a significant backstory. If I'm honest, I don't know the full story for her, so I don't know how she fits in with the other three spider heroes. But I like seeing a wider fledged out Spider-Verse. I'd like to see more of it. Because obviously the animated Spider-Man movies I absolutely love. I think they're some of the best superhero movies ever made.
Oh yeah, the Spider-Verse films are fantastic. They are absolutely top notch.
So I think it was good. I don't think it was better than either of them, but I didn't dislike my time watching it, but I'm not rushing back to see it.
So I just said I haven't seen any of the other Sony Spider-Mans without Spider-Mans. But what I can compare it to is a Marvel film. So I'll compare it to my least favorite Marvel film, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I think is a dreadful film, in which essentially the entire film is the same conversation of, oh, we didn't tell you, and then you get a flashback. It's that like 5 times over. And also, I have no interest in Kang as a villain. Quite boring, if I'm honest with you. But then again, boring villain in a boring film. That might have solved itself in a different way, but we won't talk about that now.
Mm-hmm.
The question is Madam Web better or worse than Quantum Mania? And it's better. It is better. I can't complain about that. Mostly because that film's so much worse. It's not because Madam Web's good.
Like I say, so I think at the moment Madam Web's got a 13-15% critic review on Rotten Tomatoes, about 50% viewer review. I think, you know what, somewhere between the two is about right. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I didn't come out hating it, but I'm not saying it's the best thing. I'd like it to, if there is a continuance of it, see how the other heroes get their powers and what they do with it. Outstanding. I think there's things they can learn from this and they could do better. Sometimes the sequel is better than the original.
Mm.
And it would be interesting to see. I would like to see how she plays into it, because there's a lot of references to what's coming in the next 20 years in this universe. And if I'm honest, which universe is this in? I know it's supposed to be Earth 616, which is one of the Spider-Verses. But obviously there's quite heavy references to the Parker family, Spider-Man himself, which again, not spoiling.
Yeah. We'll come back to some of those things.
We'll do the spoilers later.
Yes, we will.
I think my issue with the film was, from a weird point of view, it clearly didn't have the money of some of the others. Like cinematics, like some of the cinematography was quite nice. The panning shots when they're doing the CPR at the beginning, I quite like. But costuming, some of the budget for effects, not outstanding. Obviously, we kind of mentioned the issue with the main villain, which
yes, we've talked about this briefly before we started, in which Ezekiel, the main villain. Oh, also, side note, in your plot recap kind of thing, you said there were 3 spider peoples. Technically, there's 4 because you've got to include baddie. Which actually leads me to a different point, of which, in a universe in which...
I said heroes, not people. I did say heroes.
It's in the trailer.
But I was right. I said heroes, not spider people. I said spider heroes. He's not a hero.
Same thing. All right, fair enough. You've completely derailed me. I'll have to come back to my thought a minute ago. You were throwing to the fact that we were talking about the ADR and the redubbing for Ezekiel.
Yeah.
And it is noticeable throughout.
Almost offset.
You can see his mouth moving and the words not coming out matching at all at times. It feels like at least half, maybe more of the lines are redubbed. And also most of his lines are the same line, which are, find me those people, essentially. What I will say is just that, because this isn't a spoiler, in a universe in which so many spider peoples exist, if they did go in to introduce Peter Parker, Spider-Man, into this exact universe, he would be one of many Spider-Mans and peoples, villains and heroes. And quite honestly, I think that makes him so much less special and interesting, and just more like, oh, well, here's another bloody one. There's this high schooler. Got his spider powers, did he? Put him down the market, did he? You know.
Yeah. There is that issue, and there is a part where they address that where it's not really a spoiler, but they do say that the villain isn't seen by people, like no one else is seeing him in one of the scenes. Now, obviously, a bit further on, it's impossible for people to have not seen him. So they kind of take that away from themselves. But it would be interesting to see a Spider-Verse where spider people are more normalized, like rather than, well, he's the one and only. There was 320 years ago, and there was this guy. And
I mean, it would certainly be different to everything that's come before it, where, you know, you've got your Tobey Maguires, your Andrew Garfields, your Tommy Hollands, where they're like, I'm a Spider-Man's, but occasionally the other guys pop in. It would be different, you know, there's no doubt about it, of creating a universe where he's just like yet another one doing his story. But I do think it kind of ultimately breaks it a bit. But I don't actually think they're going to be making any sequels, so I don't think it's much of a concern. Or maybe they will. Maybe Sony will just keep driving forward with all these until they eventually have to put Spider-Man in some way.
But again, which
Shape or
Spider-Man?
form.
Because obviously, if they don't want to touch the MCU, they have brought Andrew Garfield back. He said he'd like to do another one.
Yeah, I think he'd like to do a good one though.
Fair, but he can bring the value up. It could happen. It would be nice to see. Because I do think her influence in the universe is really useful. It's quite interesting. It's a nice storyline to go through, but I just don't know how they'll do it.
Yeah, you just got to do a big time jump. Maybe they can all change clothes for once because they're in the same clothes for the entire time. Police not paying any attention to. We'll come back to that. What I will say, because I have a lot to say in Spoiler Town, unfortunately, in this one. So one of the reasons why I didn't love the film is that Cassie, Madam Web, I found to be particularly unlikable. If I'm honest, throughout the film, she's not on an arc, I would say, to not be unlikable. In fact, at the end, I'd say she's even more potentially unlikable in her final scenes. But continuity-wise, I also found her mum in the early flashbacks to be also rude and unlikable and annoying. So, family trait. You've nailed it.
I think one of the issues is they didn't use Dakota Johnson to her best. She's quite good at dry, sort of off-the-cuff comments and humor in that way. And it is a Spider-Man universe. People are supposed to be a bit quippy. They didn't use her to her ability, and I think that comes across in potential likability. Yeah,
absolutely. On the flip side of that, so yeah, I didn't really enjoy Dakota Johnson's performance. Regardless, like if that was what they were going for or not. Maybe they didn't have the right script for her. All potential options. What I will say, in the flip reverse of that, as a compliment, I actually thought the three teenagers, Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor, were pretty good in their roles, actually.
Yeah.
Especially Sydney Sweeney, who I thought they'd completely miscast. To be honest with you, having seen Anyone But You earlier in the year, I was like, how are they going to pull off young teenage schoolgirl? But she's pretty good. It works really well. I was wrong on that. I thought they'd messed it up. They hadn't.
I think they lent on the costuming a little bit to de-age her.
Yes.
Yeah. It worked for it. It was an interesting choice, but it worked in what they were trying to do with it. Yeah.
I'm gandering through my notes, trying to see the the non-spoiler bits.
Well, do we transition into spoilers now then? Because I think we've both got a lot more in spoilers to talk about.
Well, we certainly do. So, thumbs up, thumb down. I'm going to give it a thumbs down. Unfortunately,
I am going to give it a thumbs up. I don't think it's the best film I've ever seen. Like I say, out of the films I've seen this year, it's not top 4 out of the 4 I've seen. But it has potential, and it's an origin story, and I love an origin story. So for me personally, and again, I love the Spider universe no matter what it is. So bias. Plus, I guess big old Sony bias as well.
All right, so it's a thumbs down from me. There's the physical gesture.
I already did my thumbs up. So.
Sorry. Well, I was too lazy to. I'm going to crack the old spoilers on the screen. From now here on out, it's Spoiler Town. I'm just gonna complain about things that annoyed me, I guess. I'm gonna get the ball rolling, if you don't mind. Yep. Yeah, Adam Scott, who's good in the film, by the way, forgot to say that. He's one of the best bits of the film.
Best part of it, yeah.
Actually, so sorry for not giving you the shout out there, Adam Scott. He plays a guy called Ben, who's very excited to be an uncle.
Oh, there's much.
Big.
You go first, sorry.
Big wink. He's also in a new relationship. Won't say who with though, unless I fell asleep during that brief second where he's like, I'm gonna say.
They didn't say.
I'll big bloody wink there. So, and at the end of the film, he does indeed become an uncle to somebody unnamed.
Uncle who?
He becomes a big uncle. What did I say?
Uncle Ben.
He becomes an Uncle Ben.
You just didn't say.
Oh, I see.
So there's even more reference to this. There's a point where they say that he's going to be an uncle, which is like being a parent without any of the responsibility. And then Cassie's like, I'm not so sure about that.
I didn't even write it down, but you've just reminded me of the responsibility line. What's their version of "with great power comes great responsibility" in this film? Because I laughed when they said it.
Don't remember.
Oh, it's just flip reversed, but just like, just say the line. Honestly, we know what you're doing. Just say it.
But obviously, they keep poking the bear with the I'm Ben. I'm going to be the uncle. They do the whole baby naming game. What's the name going to be? We're not sure. Yeah.
Balloon burst.
And then even with the thing is at the end when you see the baby's just been born, Ben is there as the uncle because Richard is away, barking at the idea that in The Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker's parents are spies. So they're away a bit. But then you look through some webbing in the top of the curtain to see the baby, and it's like, oh, well, yeah. Like, at what point is it just like, look at this, Spider-Man?
Just stop it. And what I found weird about the whole Emma Roberts plays not Peter Parker's mum, wink, and Adam Scott is Uncle Ben. But like you say, unnamed new relationship for Ben, never seen. Richard's never seen because he's away. Nope. So throughout the film, even though they're telling me exactly who they are not subtle about this in the slightest. They feel more like like they're in a relationship. They feel like a couple. That's the vibe I was getting. They were more of a couple than anything else. And I was like, I feel like you could have just dropped all this nonsense and just had, them as a normal couple, baby, friend, relatable, while everyone else is doing, avoiding being murdered. I've got vision powers. I can see the future. And I'm a bit annoyed about it when it happens, especially at the start.
One of the things I didn't like is in all of the Spider-Man films, no matter which universe it's in, there's always a learning to use your power. It's a problem, and I don't understand what's going on, and then I've got to go through training to get it to work. Dakota Johnson has the beginning, it's a problem I don't understand, this is weird, and suddenly I'm back in the water, I can use everything, it's fine.
I've got this note myself. At one point, we'll just do the rants completely out of order. If you've seen the film, you know what's going on. At one point, she has to bugger off to Peru, which immediately like that.
Go see Paddington.
Now, this film's set in 2003, I'm pretty sure at the start. It says 2003.
Yes. Well, yeah.
So this is a post 9/11 world, assuming it happened in this universe. Might not have done.
In this universe, yeah.
But security's pretty tight. The reason I mention this is she is potentially wanted for abduction earlier in the film.
Yes.
And she spends the entire film, I will get back to Peru and Powers, I swear. She spends the entire film driving around in a smashed up yellow taxi that she stole, drove through a diner window, and we are led to believe at no point in time did a woman driving a stolen taxi matching her appearance is pulled over by the cops or anything. They don't even do the courtesy of her having a vision going, if I turn left, I'm going to get stopped by the cops. I'm going to go straight on.
That'd been good. But she also rips off the license plate as well, which is going to be an issue.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. There's a smashed up yellow taxi driving around New York with no license plates, and there's a woman who's accused of abducting 3 teenage girls. So yeah, she just goes to Peru, no problems. Post 9/11 world, security's really high in airports, I'm pretty sure at this point. Heads to Peru, immediately finds the spot where the spider tribe, who saved her mum, and thus she was born, are just instantly. She's like, I'll go around one tree, I'm there, baby, straight away. The guy's ready to talk to her. He's like, I saved you, mum, I saved you. How did she get from Peru, where everyone was murdered, and her mum's dead, and she's a little baby? How did she get back to the United States? Fill me in on the blanks here, people.
They do kind of put in a little bit that she became a citizen of Peru as she went through adoption and fostering. Yeah. So you see her birth certificate where it says citizen of Peru. And then she says she went into the foster system, and they talk about the foster thing with the kids.
I know the foster system stuff because there's like she kind of adopts them all in the end in a sort of way, unofficially perhaps. But yeah, she goes to Peru. She finds the guy. He pushes her in some magic water. She goes, "Oh, this is how everything works," and then you're done. Not even the courtesy of a fun montage. Outrageous behavior.
I think they maybe tried to work on the point where she tries to climb the wall as the fun montage. Like, how do you know you can climb a wall if you don't climb a wall? It was funny. It was a good comedy element.
I didn't hate that bit. Don't get me wrong, I didn't hate everything about the film, but there were some things that drove me mad. Specifically, driving around in a taxi. Amy told me to shush at one point because I said under my breath, "Will you change your freaking car?"
Yeah,
it was driving me up the wall. That at no point, honestly, the most of the film in that car, no one cares. I'm like,
yeah. She does steal an ambulance at one point, I guess.
Well, that leads me on to one of my favorite bits of the film, where she does steal an ambulance and drives it through the wall of, I think, a multi-story car park.
Something through similar.
A sign. Bursts through either the wall or an advertising board. And hits Ezekiel, bad Spider-Man, who's standing on a car about to murder everybody. He's got a grenade or something in his hand. And just
jumps into it.
Does he jump into it?
Yeah.
What an idiot.
If she just stayed on the car,
he
would be fine. Because if she landed on the car, she would have killed everyone inside, which is the three girls, Emma Roberts. He jumps into it and gets hit. Which
idiot. It's very funny, though. One of the best bits of the movie. Good. Stands up, of course. He's fine. He's a lad. Ben, by the way, I was praising you as a performance. As a character, you're an idiot. At one point, he takes on the girls because she's got to go to Peru. No problem. She'll be back in literally a millisecond. I don't know how long it takes to fly to Peru from New York, but it's definitely more than 10 seconds. Right, so she leaves them in the care of Uncle Ben, not yet an uncle, about to be. Emma Roberts, his wife/sister, goes into labor, and he's like, "Right, what I'll do is I'll put everyone in the car and drive right. Just leave them there. They'll be fine. They're completely off the radar. It's fine. You gotta have that action sequence, baby."
Well, no, they do the whole, like, one of the kids is seen by a camera, and that's how the plot progresses. If they left them at home,
I know,
no plot.
I get that as a plot point, but punch my mic out of anger. I get that, but it's like, Ben, what are you doing? Leave them at home. And also, Dakota Johnson, Cassie arrives like 10 minutes later.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have been.
And I can't imagine there wouldn't be no contact between them, saying like, "I'm going to be home in an hour."
Yeah. Also, Ezekiel's stolen like the CIA super spy technology, which I still don't think is possible today. Probably more so today than back in 2003 anyway. And also, at no point in time, in fact, I think there's a line in the film where he dismisses any interest in Madam Web because he's only focused on the girls. I'm like, you're an idiot. Why are you not looking into this person?
Yeah, I completely agree.
So yeah, there's some stupid character decisions. Was all I'm saying.
But again, there is in a lot of beginning of a franchise. Like, we overlook it now because we're fourth phase of the MCU. A lot of dumb decisions that were made do get like left behind because we're now thinking, well, it's been 15 years since the originals. We should be better. Whereas it is different. It's not part of the same universe. It's maybe not as polished.
Yeah, but there is that. But also, like I said earlier, it does also feel like a early 2000s movie.
Yeah. Which it is supposed to be. I will say that it is.
It nails the time frame.
It mentions it,
but they weren't making the best movies back then. So to make it feel truly like that, I mean, I feel like there's a middle ground.
Fair.
But yeah. I've just got one final question for you, I believe, gandering through my notes. Is so in the opening sequence, Ezekiel kills the mum, steals the spider.
Yep.
Fast forward 30 years, he's got the spider in a lovely display case. Best mates of it. What's he been doing for the last 30 years? Like, how's he rich? What's he been doing? Did he rob banks?
They don't actually cover it, do they?
No, he's just there. He's got a nice car. He's at the opera at one point, seducing ladies. What's he? What is this? Who is this guy? Did he? I can't quite remember. Did he steal the spider at the start because of something to do with his family. A line. There's
Yes.
there's no anything about him. He's just like, I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, it's just accepted that he's
And this was just
super rich, super suave, doesn't wear shoes ever.
Yeah. Put some shoes on, mate. Oh, and I think there's a throwaway line by the guy who she meets in Peru from the spider tribe. There's a whole spider tribe, guys. A whole spider tribe. And I think he says like he's been cursed or something.
Yeah. So they do mention it at the beginning where they say that the spider tribe attacks men that basically wrongdoing men. I can't remember the exact wording they use, but they're there to protect people from bad men. And then because he does this to get hold of the spider and get the power, he is then cursed because of it. Obviously, he has the issue where he gets all of the strength and the superpowers you'd expect, and his gift of foresight is seeing his own death. Whereas
it's not that much of a curse. I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like you could
can't be fun.
Get over it, I reckon. I'd get over it.
Fair.
Personally, I'd get over it.
So let's get you that spider and see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah,
let's go to Peru.
Give me that big, horrible CGI spider.
It takes 10 seconds.
Also, there's a really dumb line. I'm wrapping up because we've gone.
I've got little things I want to cover at the end because I've got my little beardy, nerdy stuff that I want to go through.
Well, I'll wrap up my final point. There's an annoying line at the end where she's used her big powers to outsmart him, and he's going to get crushed by a big Pepsi sign. And she's like, "Oh, you were too busy worried about the girls being your downfall, but it was bloody me." I'm like, what's this attitude you've got?
Yeah.
Why are you being so rude? And then she's blinded, paralyzed, and she's in a wheelchair, looking so unbelievably smug. I mean, maybe I'd be smug if I could see the future and teleport around a bit in a vague way.
Astral projection, I think they call.
I think that's my main complaint about the film, is I just found the lead character to be quite unlikable. And I think that's ultimately a flaw that I couldn't get past too much.
Yeah, I think at the beginning she's supposed to be a little unlikable, a bit abrasive, but they don't
she's meant to be,
they don't fix it.
She's meant to be socially awkward. Like there's a point where she's meant to take a thank you card from a kid and she's like a dick about it, and then she's like she wants to just hide at the back of a bar. She's me in a barbecue. She just wants to be by the barbecue cooking food and then like chatting to who's near me, but not doing the party games. Anyway, so that's my final thoughts. Essentially, it would be a perfect movie if they didn't spend so much time in the same taxi. That's what I'm saying. What are your nerdy comments?
Yeah, obviously it's a Sony film. I need to do my Sony nerdy stuff because I have to. We kind of discussed this briefly beforehand. Sony are quite heavy at putting their own products in their films where they can. Obviously, in the 1973 part of it, she's using a Nikon camera. Interesting fact, obviously, Sony weren't making cameras then, so it's nice to see some continuation compliance then. Jump forward to 2003, they kind of like crowbar in a PSP when they're on the underground or the train. PSP wasn't out yet, slightly annoying to me because I do training on this like every month, so I know exactly when everything came out. It wasn't there. And then another one that was playing in my mind, which I had to research afterwards, the main song that you hear later on, Toxic, Britney Spears, not out in 2003 either.
When did it come out?
2004.
Unbelievable.
Same with the PSP in 2004.
Unbelievable.
It's so close.
And you put that in a taxi, not being pulled over by the police, that's a thumbs down. Quite honestly. Dear, oh dear. Right. Anything? I've hit my microphone like 4 times in this recording. I do apologize.
We're going to have to get you a different microphone. Move multiple around.
This is what happens. We've changed our cropping so I can be more immersive and emotive. Sorry. And now I'm just punching my own microphone repeatedly. So apologies for that, everybody.
The final thoughts. Yes, like it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the best film I've ever seen, but I did enjoy it. I liked the little tongue-in-cheek pokes at the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse stuff. Like, this is Uncle Ben, but it's not. This is May, but it's not. This is Peter, but it's not. I liked bits like that. It's a nice homage to people who know the story and are willing to pay attention, I guess.
Yeah.
It could have been done better, but I do think
I don't think you necessarily need to pay attention to the Uncle Ben stuff, if I'm honest. They hit you over the head.
I bet you a lot of people, more people than you think, have missed that.
I hope not, but yeah, no. Fair enough. All right.
Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for watching, everybody. That is the second episode of the Bobby and Beardy Show wrapped up. We'll be back soon enough with another edition where we might talk about something to do with wrestling. Who knows? I've been Bobby.
I've still been Beardy.
We will work on this outro for next time.
We will.
But thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.